Hyenas. I hate hyenas.
So what's your plan for getting past those guys?
Live bait.
Good idea. Hey.
Come on, Timon. You guys have to create a diversion.
What do you want me to do? Dress and drag and do the hula? Wow!
Hello, viewers! Welcome back to another episode of EcoSwap. Today we'll be taking one of the first dinosaurs ever officially named and discovered, Iguanodon bernusartensis, and placing it in Africa 13 to 10 million years ago in the Miocene period. Specifically, we'll be using Kenya's Engora formation. This episode is a tribute to Iguanodon itself, as this year marked the 200th year anniversary of its discovery and naming. Will the second dinosaur be able to carve out a niche? Or will the land where everything started have enough mammal power to hold off the tide? Let's find out.
Oh my.
Surprise! It's an iguana.
So for the uninitiated, what is Iguanodon? After Megalosaurus, it's the first dinosaur to be named. It's had a lot of revisions over the years, with early interpretations thinking it was a lizard-like animal with a giant nose horn. Nowadays, we know Iguanodon was a medium-sized hadrosaur, or duck-billed dinosaur.
Yep.
At 3 to 5 tons, 25 to 35 feet long, or about 8 to 11 meters, and standing 9 feet or 3 meters tall, they are comparable in size to your average elephant. They were bulk-feeding herbivores that grazed or browsed on particularly tough plants. Now, some people will think that hadrosaurs are boring, and Iguanodon is a great example of why that's not the case. It's got some crazy unique features, starting off with its most iconic, the thumb spike. Its exact purpose was one of two hypotheses. The first being it was used to crack open tough nuts or seeds. The second is that it functioned like a stiletto, a stabbing defense against predators of the time.
Well, maybe I feel steady.
Another key feature is their teeth. Their jaws worked in a way that the lower and upper teeth grinded on each other like a mortar and pestle. Add to this that its teeth were continuously replaced like a crocodile's, and Iguanodon possessed what's called a dental battery. Few, if any, plants could resist being ground to a pulp by this arrangement. While Iguanodon's exact diet is still debated, it could break down just about any plant, no matter the physical defense. Last, we have its huge, robust, jacked arms. Unusual for a dinosaur, these front limbs were almost as thick as the hind limbs, despite the fact that Iguanodon was partially bipedal. They could rear up, forage, walk, and even run short distances on their back legs, freeing up the arms for movement. Most of their fingers were thick and inflexible, but the smallest was actually quite dexterous and could manipulate objects. But back to the arms. Seriously, Iguanodon had gains. You know all those jokes people make about T-Rex and Carnotaurus having puny, wimpy little arms? Yeah, Iguanodon wrote those.
I knew all we needed to get Dad fit was a montage.
Yeah, and quick too. It was under a minute.
That tune is so annoying. Still got it going around in my head.
Me too.
Saido Chesto!
Note to self, give editor a raise. Second note to self, check editor's ADHD medication. Like most hadrosaurs, Iguanodon's tail was thick and powerful, strengthened by ossified tendons, or tendons that had turned into bone. Useful for both maintaining balance while running, and as a swinging bat to club potential predators with. Despite how it's portrayed in pop culture, there's actually no evidence of herding behavior in this hadrosaur. The only fossils found in a group were the result of a flash flood, which could have been multiple individual bodies washed up together in a coincidence. We do know its later, more derived relatives, like Maiasaura and Edmontosaurus, lived in herds, but behaviors can change rapidly in evolutionary time. Lions and tigers are in the same genus, but one is far more social than the other. Growth rates and parental care are somewhat mysteries. Similar-sized hadrosaurs from later in the Cretaceous showed intense parental care, and it took them roughly 7 years to reach adult size. These numbers both come from Maiasaura. But it should be noted that Iguanodon is much more basal, or older and ancestral, so assigning these traits to it would be a bit premature. However, other hadrosaur species show similar growth rates over time, so that's what we're going to go with. In their home environment, they had several large predators to deal with. The Spinosaurid Baryonyx, the early Tyrannosaurian Eotyrannus, and the Carcharodontosaur Neovenator. Large, 1 to 2 ton theropods with big claws and teeth. Though large specimens of Iguanodon certainly weren't defenseless. Iguanodon fossils come from at least 4 known formation sites: Wessex, Lower Green Sand Group, Camarillus, and St. Barb's Clay Formation. In Wessex, this climate was hot and dry, similar to the deserts around the Mediterranean Sea. The Camarillus Formation and the St. Barb Clays Formation were a vast system of lakes and river deltas. So this shows that this hadrosaur was not picky about its environment, and was likely a generalist in habitat and diet. Now, I know I said we're going to use the Engora formation, but we'll also be filling it out with some of the fauna from surrounding formations in space and time, just to spice things up a little bit. We'll also take into account the modern-day locale, which is now Baringo County, Kenya, to get an idea of the temperatures and precipitation. Average temperatures vary from the mid-60s Fahrenheit, or 15 degrees Celsius in the cool seasons, and upper 90s Fahrenheit, or 30 degrees Celsius in the dry seasons. It tends to stay warm and hot in this part of the world, and that was true in the Miocene as well. The average rainfall is about 2,000 millimeters a year, which we know thanks to soil samples from the fossilized formations nearby. But long before we get into the flora and fauna, we need to analyze this habitat itself. Because it's only 10 million years old, Engora was quite similar to Kenya of today. Grasslands and open forests, seasonal wetlands and fluvial floodplains, and even a lowland rainforest environment was present. The plant life here is quite different than Iguanodon is used to, with flowering plants now dominating the gymnosperms. More importantly, grass is now the girl on top in terms of plant life, making up the majority of plant biomass. It's a plant Iguanodon likely never saw before. Hopefully they don't have hay fever allergies like I do. Large lakes are prevalent in the region, both freshwater and alkaline. Alkaline lakes, or soda lakes, are bodies of water with a very high pH, usually between 9 and 12. And they have a very high salinity, with an absurd amount of calcium and sodium carbonate in them. This is a big way of saying the lakes are inhospitable to most life, but animals like cichlids and flamingos love them. One man's acid bath is another man's hot tub, I suppose. But yeah, no, if you're not adapted to these lakes, it will suck the moisture out of you with prolonged exposure, turning you into a California raisin. All in all, it's a weird mix for our plucky hadrosaurs. Temperature and precipitation are comparable to its home time. The plant life is mostly foreign, so everything's going to look a bit odd for them. The grasslands are an entirely new biome that they've never seen before. And worst of all, a few dinosaurs are definitely going to perish by wandering into or drinking from alkaline lakes. But overall, not too bad for them.
Listen, kid, if you live with us, you have to eat like us. Hey, this looks like a good spot to rustle up some grub.
Ew, what's that?
A grub. What's it look like?
Ew, gross.
Tastes like chicken.
So what's good to eat at this salad bar? Quite a bit. Like in its home time, gymnosperms, horsetails, and ferns are available, but they're not as common or prevalent as they used to be. They've been largely replaced by angiosperms, or flowering plants, after the KPG extinction worldwide. Now, Iguanodon isn't a stranger to the concept of flowering plants. After all, they both evolved in the Cretaceous. It's just not its preferred diet. Back in the Cretaceous, flowering plants would have been rare, and not something that they depended on as a staple. They'll have to change here, as sustaining themselves on older plants alone won't do it to feed their 3 to 5 ton frames. Luckily, with a giant hindgut and a dental battery, there isn't much that Iguanodon can't digest. Even better still, this fossil formation actually has quite a well-preserved list of flora. Family groups of plants like Acanthaceae Menispermaceae, Rubiaceae, Violaceae, and Sapotaceae are all edible for animals like Iguanodon. Normally I'd go into more exact detail on this which species, but A, we don't know which species, and B, the dental battery and large guts for digestion means unless something is actively toxic, I doubt the hadrosaur would have trouble with them. We know of a few unique genuses of plants still around today. Ziziphus, Acalifa, Artobotrys, Lasiodiscus, and Dioscorea are all edible. I can't say for sure if some plants would be edible for Iguanodon or not, and those are Cola, Sapium, Polea, and members of the families Poaceae, Myrtaceae, Echinaceae, Melastomaceae, and Olacaceae. Though I want to make an argument for Poaceae, aka grass. Out of all dinosaurs, Iguanodon's ever-replacing dental battery is best suited for the tough silica of grass. Absolutely off the menu are plants of the families Loganaceae and Begoniaceae, both of which are highly toxic. Toxic enough to potentially kill humans and horses that eat them, so not something Iguanodon wants in its belly. Lastly, like some hadrosaurs, Iguanodon may have enjoyed
Succulent crustacean flesh?
It would come across this in the form of isopods in rotting wood, or crabs foraged along the beachside. And luck may have it, the Engora formation has that in spades too. 5 genera of snails are present, as well as the freshwater crab, Potamon.
Who's that Pokemon?
It's Pikachu!
It's Blueberry!
So in terms of food, it's looking pretty dang good. But what, if anything, can make food of an Iguanodon? Now this is where things get interesting. The new cast of characters in the Cenozoic is mostly mammalian, so this will be an adjustment period. How does this hadrosaur integrate into the local ecosystem?
Jumbo. What?
First, let's talk about competition for food, water, and territory. We can rule out the dedicated grazers, like horses, as Iguanodon would need time to adapt to eating grass. We need to look at browsers. No, not those browsers. I mean the herbivorous niche of browsers. Animals that eat bushes, saplings, small trees, and anything else growing at like a middle height. Firstly, we have a bunch of browsers who are of no competitive note. The rhinos Aceratherium, Racingaceros, Brachypotherium, and the modern genus Diceros, or the black rhino. We also have the giraffids Paleotragus, Climacoceros, Aphrygenocarax, and Samotherium, the antelopes Impala and Nilgai, and the primate Proconsul. None of these animals exceed a ton, allowing even a small Iguanodon to push them aside and claim the best leaves and fruit for itself. The apes might be an issue, though their ability to climb and get to the best leaves and fruits first make them stiff competition, but the sheer size of an Iguanodon will chase them off pretty quickly. Though with their intelligence, they should soon learn the dinos are better for protection, and will probably gather around them. Huh, monkeys and an Iguanodon, why does that sound familiar?
Run, Hunter! Run!
Not a competitor, but the ancestor of modern hippos, Kenyapotamus, is dominating the rivers and lakes. They are grazers, but if modern hippos are any indication, they won't be inclined to share pasture, and will have no hesitation to try and push around the newcomers. Adult bulls may be able to match the average Iguanodon in mass, though females aren't likely to attack unless their calves are nearby. However, hippos live in large herds, and coupled with their aggression, they could probably chase off Iguanodons coming for a drink or mud wallow. Whether or not the hadrosaurs choose to test this bluff will depend on their own desperation. The Anthracotheres, relatives of hippos and entelodonts, are also present, but they're likely too small to be of an issue. I was going to make a huge section on Calicotheres, the famous gorilla horses of the Cenozoic, but fossils of them in this region are way scarcer than I thought they were going to be. We only have one, undescribed, indeterminate species, that's roughly the size of a Shetland pony. like other browsers I've mentioned, they aren't going to be competition. Which only leaves one clade of mammal to give the hadrosaurs trouble.
That sounded just like an elephant.
Proboscideans, aka elephants and relatives, are generalist herbivores that frequently reach dinosaur sizes. At least 4 are present in Miocene Africa, and will be the major competition for Iguanodon to go up against. Anakis, Zygolophodon, Coerolophodon, and Dinotherium call Miocene Kenya home. All were mixed feeders, utilizing grazing and browsing. Coerolophodon is an extremely basal elephant, ancestral and close to the bottom of their family tree. It's the smallest of the 4, though we don't have exact sizes for the species in Africa. We know its European cousins didn't even get to half a ton. Because of its basal nature, we can't definitively assume it had the traits of modern elephants, like intelligence and sociality. Not the case with its cousins. Anakis was a 2.5 meter, or 8 foot at the shoulder elephant, weighing 5 to 6 tons. Their tusks were unusually long and straight, with some individuals having tusks over 12 feet or 4 meters in length. These animals were more dedicated to browsing than modern elephants, and would be prime competition for our hadrosaurs. Their herd-dwelling behavior and size that either matches or surpasses Iguanodon means they can push the hadrosaurs around like the dinosaur did to the small denizens of Africa. And it only gets worse. Dinotherium and Zygolophodon both reach sizes upwards of 10 tons, with the highest estimates going as far as 15 tons. Zygolophodon was a close relative of the American mastodon, just less hairy. They sported a pair of incisor tusks on their lower jaw, likely for scraping off bark and digging for roots and tubers. Dinotherium is the most famous elephant here, with its tall legs and backwards-facing lower jaw tusks. More so than any other elephant here, they were the kings of browsers. Their extra-long legs granted both greater height and traveling efficiency for crossing the savannah between forests. Their tusks were used to move branches out of the way for easier feeding. A minimum shoulder height of 11 feet, or just under 4 meters, shows that they were larger than the modern African elephant. All 3 of these aforementioned pachyderms could easily displace a lone Iguanodon. Their herds would likely scatter the hadrosaurs like the rats in Ratatouille. Again, we don't have any hard evidence suggesting herding behavior in Iguanodon, so they don't have the number or cooperation to even the odds here. On to the predators. Predators for Iguanodon chicks here in Engora include crocodiles, varanids, marabou storks, mongoose, civets, honey badgers, and meerkats. None of these stand out too much from what the Iguanodon had to deal with in the Cretaceous. Crocs and lizards existed back then, as well as small mammals. The marabou storks are comparable to the small theropods that it coexisted with. First up on our docket of Miocene mammal predators is Plesiogulo, a leopard-sized mustelid closely related to the modern wolverine. Now that you've all shit your pants, let's break down why this is not as scary as you think. Mustelids are famous for punching above their weight class. Tiny weasels kill rabbits 100 times their size, and wolverines have been known to kill adult moose. But those moose are those weakened from rough winters and being stuck in incredibly deep snow. And all mustelids are prey to larger predators. Weasels get killed by birds frequently, and wolverines are heavily targeted by wolves and bears as prey. Those old stories of wolverines killing polar bears are just made up garbage. Iguanodon will only be prey to Plesiogulo when very small. The Nimravid Afrosmilus is also here, a clouded leopard-sized, false saber-toothed cat. This is another lineage of predators that's good at hunting above their weight class. Due to its physiology, it likely hunted like a modern leopard, ambushing prey from the grass or trees. Nimravids are known to kill prey by stabbing those saber-tooth right into the target's skull, which is brutal AF, but the size gap here is still simply too much. Again, this would only be a predator to young Iguanodons. The true hyenas have appeared in Africa around this time, and are represented by the genus Perocrocutta. The many species in the genus vary from 60 to 200 pounds, or 30 to 100 kilograms. Their jaws aren't as strong as those of modern hyenas, but they were likely cursorial predators with great stamina and were probably fairly social. Now, this is our first official threat to Iguanodon. Modern hyenas have been known to prey on animals as large as rhinos, which also reach 2 to 3 tons. They do this by... Oh jeez, this video is going to get demonetized right here. Graphic content warning, the following description is not pretty. Spotted hyenas prey on rhinos by biting them on the anus and genitals, where the skin is thinner, and bleeding them out. The rhinos are too slow to turn to catch them, and the pack can distract the horned end while the few others...
Mr. Krabs, start digging in your butt crack.
Did I use that phrase right? Luckily, Iguanodon's cloaca is high off the ground that this tactic won't work, at least for adults, but a pack could still harass them, making them a major threat. Next up are the bear dogs, or amphicyonids. There are 2 present in Miocene Kenya, Cynellos and Miocene. Both are the size of a modern African lion, 300 kilograms or 400 to 500 pounds. These large carnivores had strong, self-sharpening teeth that could cut sinew and crush bone, and had large, dexterous paws for grappling. By today's standards, these are some super predators. But they'll only be able to prey on iguanodons up to about half a ton, similar to the limit lions have. Worse still, there's no evidence amphicyonids were pack hunters, so a lone bear dog stands even less of a chance. Again, only a predator for the young, old, sick, and weak. And now we get to the real kings of Kenya, the hyenodonts. No, they aren't hyenas, despite the name. They just have the same bone-crushing style of jaws as their namesake. These are distant relatives of modern carnivorans, actually closer to pangolins than they are to hyenas, lions, bears, or wolves. But unlike pangolins, they were dedicated predators. There are 2 species present at Engora and surrounding areas, Simbakubwa and Megistotherium. Now, size estimates vary a lot, but low-end estimates put both animals around the size of a large polar bear, at 700 to 1200 pounds or 300 to 500 kilograms. This alone is big enough to threaten a subadult hadrosaur, but we're not even done. Higher estimates for these hyenodonts range for the most acceptable full ton to 1.5 tons on the high end for Simbakubwa, to a staggering 3 tons for the maximum estimate on Megistotherium? Obviously, the higher end ones are a bit sketchy, but an animal in 1 to 1.5 tons are actually very plausible. A 3,000 pound, bone-crushing mammal is a nightmare for our hadrosaurs. The iguanodons may not even recognize them as predators first, due to their normal predators being bipedal. Simbakubwa and Megistotherium could saunter up, grabbing the head and neck and strangle the poor dinosaurs to death. To make matters worse, they aren't much smaller than the native predators that Iguanodon had to deal with. Baryonyx peaked at about 2 tons, with Eotyrannus and Neovenator only being a little over a ton. So both of these hyenodonts are about the same size as animals that we know ate Iguanodon. Not to say this is foolproof. An adult Iguanodon is still over twice their weight, and their strong arms and thumb spikes make for deadly weapons. A fight could go either way, but the hyenodonts are definitely going to be effective predators that even adult iguanodons will have to worry about. So how do our iguanodons do in Africa? The climate and diet are good, which just leaves the competition. Elephants and hyenodonts offer big obstacles, particularly the elephants. Our hadrosaurs aren't used to having to share the treetops. Hyenodonts are certainly an issue, but it's not like Iguanodon didn't deal with predators that size in the Cretaceous. What saves the iguanodons here is reproductive fitness. Like all dinosaurs, a single female iguanodon can lay dozens of eggs in a single season, while a similar-sized mammal can only have 1 offspring at a time. The chicks will grow fast and populate fast, so even without herding behaviors, the African savanna will be filled with hadrosaurs in no time. Now, before we get into the speculative evolution portion, I want to take a moment to highlight a charity in today's video. If you're familiar with Creatures Archives content, and you should, he and I have worked together before, then you probably know where this is going. The Cancer Research Institute is undergoing new immunotherapy research that you can all help support and donate to today. Instead of using radiation or chemicals to attack cancer, which also causes short-term issues for the human body, they are working on training immune systems to recognize and attack cancer directly. They support and care for people and research institutions around the globe, so no matter where you are, your donation can help. Every little bit helps, so please don't hesitate to do so. This is part of the Dinos vs. Cancer movement that was started by Delta Reaper 54. Delta Reaper 54 has lost loved ones to cancer before, and so they started this hashtag and this movement to help generate research and attention to this particular issue. Please go and donate if you can. Now back to the speculative evolution. Mdomo. Competition with elephants pushed some populations out of the ideal grazing and browsing spots. Pushed to the marginal areas along the coast, this one group of iguanodons started to rely more on the hard-shelled animals of the sea to supply the calories they need to keep their big bodies going. Over time, this resulted in them becoming more and more adapted to a semi-marine lifestyle. Millions of years later, we have the Nguva Ndomo, which means beaked dugong in Swahili. At 3 tons and 25 feet long, this walrus-sized and shaped dinosaur is now a durophagous animal, feeding almost exclusively on crustaceans and mollusks. The cold waters of the south and eastern coast of Africa provide a great boon of seafood to support these huge animals. Occasionally, they'll prey on fish, penguins, and young pinnipeds, though this is more opportunistic than a major source of their diet. Denser bones and a layer of blubber allow them to tolerate the deep, cold water. But even so, these dinosaurs aren't fully warm-blooded. Nguva Mdomo only feed during the day, when they can retreat to the shoreline to warm up, and the sunlight warms the surface. This allows them to compete less with pinnipeds and be slightly at risk from their primary predators, great white sharks. At night, they gather on the beaches and huddle together for warmth, relying on body heat to keep the cold sea air from chilling their bones. Males are routinely 2 to 3 times larger than the females, as females need to be smaller to pull themselves farther up beaches for laying eggs. Females lay 30 to 60 eggs per season and offer little to no parental care. Like sea turtles, the young are off on their own shortly after hatching. The beaks of these dinosaurs are heavily keratinized with a pair of large tusks. These tusks are present in both sexes, but larger in the males. Both use them for foraging the substrate for clams and crabs, but males engage in combat in the shallows for the role of beachmaster. Like large seals, they are territorial during the day. But unlike pinnipeds, Nguva Mdomo males will forgive and forget. During the night, males that have inflicted wounds on each other in the prior day will huddle up to escape the cold nights.
2 bros chilling in the hot tub, 5 feet apart cause they're not
Only large sharks and orcas prey on adults. Younger individuals have to be wary of large pinnipeds, various sharks, cetaceans, or the occasional lion or hyena pride prowling the beach. Hatchlings get targeted by vivarids like mongoose, pigs, varanids, crocodiles, seabirds, birds of prey, primates, canids, felids, pinnipeds, large fish. Honestly, it's quicker to list things, not gobbling them up. But because they reproduce so quickly, they manage to keep a stable population going. Mundu Mjuzi. Deep in the jungles and forests of Central Africa lives one of the largest land animals on the planet. A dinosaur comparable to the heaviest elephants on the continent. Mundu Mjuzi, or the scythe lizard in Swahili. But instead of a giant hadrosaur like Edmontosaurus, this Iguanodon descendant has been shaped by its new environment. It's gone hard into the browser lifestyle. So hard, in fact, it looks more like another clade of dinosaur, the Therizinosaurids. Their long necks offer a wide reach for eating the ripest leaves and fruits. To even better increase the amount of plants they can reach, their front limbs have become more dexterous. In fact, this dinosaur is almost entirely bipedal, with its front limbs reserved entirely for grasping branches. Their thumb spike has gotten huge, and recurved for latching onto branches to pull them closer, which is how they got the name scythe lizard. A huge gut allows them to ferment and digest the tougher leaves and fruits, but a consequence of this was the animal's posture had to change. Like the Therizinosaurs it converged on, their posture is far more upright, and their necks are far longer to boot. This dinosaur stands 16 feet tall at the shoulder, weighs 6 to 8 tons, and its head is almost 30 feet off the ground. Only the largest elephant bulls outweigh this gargantuan archosaur. Far more solitary than even their ancestors, Mundu Mjusi males are primarily solo, though females will gather in small herds of related individuals during breeding seasons. These herds travel freely, with males patrolling individual territories that are heavily intolerant of each other. Not only do they attack other males, but other large animals that wander in. Their aggression does serve an evolutionary purpose, though. Coexisting with elephants, an animal that reshapes its environment to suit its own needs, can be a threat to these animals' reproductive strategy. Elephants tend to make wide game trails, expand watering holes, and convert forest into grassland. Male Mundu Mjusi will be quick to chase off elephant herds, as well as any unfortunate forest buffalo, rhinos, or gorillas in the general vicinity. Humans avoid these animals, where males set up shop and making sure to walk wide paths around them. Normally, humans are too small to register for these hadrosaurs, but a large band or tribe may tick them off. Even so, the peoples who live there are well versed in the behavior of these grumpy giants. It's rare that encounters lead to bloodshed, at least with the native peoples. Colonizers attempting to brave these virgin jungles often end up setting camp in the males' display creches. Mundu Mjusi males clear a small patch of jungle for their mating dances. Some males will intentionally destroy or thrash a rival's creche in order to ruin their chances, or simply to force that male to spend all day fixing their creche, losing out on mating opportunities. It should be as no surprise that any male who finds human explorers in this creche are shown no mercy.
Why are you running? Why are you running?
Adult Mundu Mjusi have no predators or rivals, but young are targeted by leopards and occasionally lions at the edge of their range. Luckily, their mothers and her sisters and cousins look after the young with great care, having them travel with her until they begin to reach sexual maturity roughly 4 years and 3 tons later. This is good, since for the first month, the young hadrosaur's beaks aren't tough enough to handle all but the softest of plants. Adult females make sure to give them their ABCs, already been chewed. Ngombe Tatani. The majority of Iguanodon descendants adapted to the open forest and grassland habitats sub-Saharan Africa has to offer. Their dental batteries have become even more adapted for the high silica content of the grasses, allowing them to easily graze alongside the many ungulates. Rather conservative in their body plan, these hadrosaurs are simply stockier, squatter, with a more cropped beak similar to a sulcata and a very, very large chest and gut area for digestion. All traits adapted to their new grazing lifestyle. These animals travel in herds of multiple ages and sexes, following migratory routes across the continent. They stop their migration only for 3 weeks out of the year, for females to lay their eggs and incubate. The young are very precocial when hatched, having developed far more in the mother's body so that their egg incubation time is shorter. They are able to walk almost immediately after hatching, and keep up with the herd as well. Which isn't to say they don't have predators. Adults of this species reach 3 to 4 tons in weight, and they are sometimes taken by very dedicated lions, hyenas, African painted dogs, and of course the hyenodonts. Far more commonly though, young are the targets, being right in the ideal prey range for most of Africa's predators. Hatchlings are even more desired, hunted by birds, lizards, snakes, and most small mammals. But with such high reproductive rates and protection from adults, more than enough survive to keep the population going. They form a new staple to the vision of the African savanna, just as picturesque as zebra, giraffes, and elephants, especially to the people that live there. Unlike the native mammals, these hadrosaurs were rarely prey for early hunter-gatherer humans. Their sheer size and speed, coupled with a surprisingly sharp mind, made them not worth the effort. Locals usually just raided nests when available. This ultimately led to some young hadrosaurs imprinting on the humans that took their eggs. And it only took one instance of empathy, one time of being
too adorable to kill,
to change the very course of human history. For this story, our timeline diverges around 5000 BCE. Dogs have been domesticated in the northern hemisphere, and the Proto-Indo-European languages developed, and the Bronze Age is in full swing almost worldwide. In sub-Saharan Africa, in what our timeline will become Kenya, the first herd of Ngombe Tatani is kept in captivity. The tribe doing so is the earliest, but it won't be the last. These hadrosaurs take well to living alongside humans, bonding with them if raised from an egg. Keeping with their nomadic lifestyle, these people travel with the herd as they graze, offering better protection for the young than the adult hadrosaurs ever could. A small price to pay for humans taking some of the eggs each laying, and occasionally slitting the throat of an adult behind a corner where the others can't see. It's an easy, reliable source of food. This was the birth of the people of the thumb, Watowa Kidol Gumba. It should be noted that while other African cultures utilized the hadrosaurs, they never became a staple domestic livestock outside of sub-Saharan Africa, with the exception of a small herd in southern India that got there via trading. The animals' incubation temperatures are relatively picky, and humans in Europe had no chance of ever breeding them. Occasionally a zoo, menagerie, or private collection would have one, but these were older animals traded away by the wealthy. New stock had to come from the source. India only had a few hundred, limited in scale by the higher humidity and the fact that their initial stock was small in number, resulting in inbreeding. Which means the animals were only predominantly utilized by people in Central and Southern Africa. We flash forward to the mid-1600s. After several decades of relatively peaceful trading, the Portuguese began their first forays into slave trading along the coasts. As these became more commonplace, word of the drastic cruelty traveled far. Names of the fates of those transported across the sea reached the ears of the people of the thumb. You see, Central Africa was now connected by intensive trade and migratory routes. Using these hadrosaurs made for highly efficient ways to transport information, goods, or people themselves. And the Watowa Kidol Gumba were the dominant culture in sub-Saharan Africa, with their territories and migration routes covering most of the continent. Still nomadic, their domestic herds numbered in the millions, as did the people who cared for them and moved in large caravans roaming the savannas. There were some city-states present across the continent as well, but these belonged to other cultures. The people of the thumb indirectly facilitated their existence though, as the trade routes they established made such a huge gathering of people easier to maintain. When the number of nomads kidnapped by raiding parties began to reach triple digits, the herd runners in charge of each clan came together. It was clear there was a rise in the number of missing persons, and the pressure from the outside trade had instigated it. And one thing was clear. These kidnappings had come from the far west, along the coastlines, places where Portuguese, Spanish, French, English, and
the Dutch
colonies had been established.
Oi, 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 you wanker, what's all this then?
The emperor, the conqueror, the champion, the lion is here. Zobu, zobu, enyimba, master. Toya dike, nenu dike. Toya dike, nenu dike. Kiye jamara dike, ruenu.
Rallying behind the herd runner who history would record as Queen Shakira, the people of the thumb began a decades-long campaign against the European colonies that engaged in slave trading and the tribes that they had employed to assist them. Combat against tribes was a messy, bloody affair, due to both sides having hadrosaur war mounts. But against the stationary European colonies, it was a slaughter. Like the Mongols did 400 years prior, Queen Shakira led a cavalry force to each station, either starving them out or full-on raiding them. The obstacles that would stop a horseback army in Europe barely slowed down 3-ton hadrosaurs. Front lines broke and fell easily. Armored knights, those who didn't sweat to death in the heat, were crumpled like tin cans. Artillery were plowed over, knocked to the side before they could get off a single shot. In our timeline, during the 1800s, the Zulu were able to defeat British forces with muskets thanks in part to their durable, cowskin shields. Now, with firearms technology 200 years before, what do you think those slugs will do to a hadrosaur leather shield? Only the oldest, most trusted European settlements remained south of Morocco when the people of the Thumb's army was finished, along with a tiny settlement in what our timeline would be called South Africa. The rest were soundly routed, chased back to the north. Their slave supply chains were broken. which isn't to say things were entirely peaceful afterwards. Slave trading had existed in Africa prior to the Europeans' industrialization of it. But the European influence was now drastically smaller, if not entirely removed. The domino effects of such a drastic change from our history are still being felt in this timeline. England eventually collapsed, unable to support their booming population without slavery and colonies. Africa and India were better able to resist their advances, and without slave labor, establishing a presence in the Americas was all but impossible. The English Isles were eventually absorbed into France, which was struggling with their own lack of resources. Spain and France would eventually go to war with each other. Meanwhile, Belgium's monarchy was removed from power and eaten by the lower classes. Only Portugal managed to stay relatively successful, largely in part due to their trade route with East Asia. How the history of this Earth continues beyond the 1700s is currently a mystery, as our timelines are desynchronized. But it's certainly looking more hopeful, having dodged one of the greatest travesties in human history. Now, no one's saying the Iguanodons stopped slavery themselves, but with a unique and exclusive tool, the people of the thumb in this alternate reality managed to save themselves.
Nice whip. This here is
Iguanodon.
But the point is this, that in the future, all black people will be free. When's we gonna be free? That is a good question, my man. How about now?
As always, I want to give a very special thanks to my team of volunteer artists who helped me make this video. Barzap, Just Some Guy, Shaded Janet, Nuka Cola, Drake Boy, Green Claw Studios, Johnny the Citipatty, and Bald Bird. Once again, you guys are awesome. I also want to take a moment to highlight the sources that we have used in today's episode before I got all my relevant information. And following that, here is a list of artwork featured in this episode that was either pulled from online or not made by the artists who helped me with this channel. As always, folks, thank you so much for watching. Make sure to like, comment, subscribe, and all those algorithmic things, and I'll see you all next time.